I want to thank you, Rabbi Cohen, for reaching out to me and giving me the opportunity to interview Tiferet Levi. I have to say, one thing you don't know about me is that I lived on mountain sites, on the corner of mountain sites, and from time to time I would look out the window and I would see a whole group of seminary girls walking, and I was always intrigued. I didn't know much about the seminary and everything that you do, and so I'm really excited to be here today to be able to interview Tiferet Levi from Manila, Philippines, who has an incredible story, and thank you very much for this opportunity. I have to say, it's amazing that there's actually a Jewish community and there's Jewish life at the other end of the world. And today we're going to be speaking to Tiferet Levi, who currently lives in Manila and spearheading with her husband and her family the Chabad there. So this is very exciting. And I have to say, Tiferet is such a beautiful name. It means splendor. It means a balance between Gevura and Chesed, and it takes a lot of Chesed. It takes a lot of Gevura to and courage to move at the other end of the world and do the work that you do. But tell me a little bit about your childhood and where you grew up.
So I was born in New York, but I grew up in Miami. My parents worked there and did a little outreach within the community and just with their acquaintances. But the main thing that I really took from my parents' home is it was such an open home. We had a lot of guests. Like, we would complain if there was a Shabbat that we didn't have guests over, and my mom would be cooking. It was never, even if she was working, it never seemed like something that wasn't going to happen. So, I think a number of my siblings are also on shlichut in different locations around the world. We definitely took that from my parents, so that's something special.
Why did you decide to study at the seminary?
So when I finished high school, I wanted to look for a place where I can kind of, show myself in a different way. I was a bit shy and was looking for a new location. And I actually went to a place where I just had one friend that was going. But in the end, it really was such a rounded experience for me. We also had education classes, which for me I really worked in that and I loved that. And even till today, for my kids, I took things.
You were a little shy, and how did you integrate, and what kind of activities did you take part in?
So I actually surprised myself when I joined the seminary, because I said, okay, this is my opportunity, and I just jumped into it. I took part in managing all the events for the elementary school with another friend. And late in the second year, I was actually there for 2 years. So my second year, I took part in doing all the events in the seminary, the monthly events, connecting girls to different families for Shabbat. So I just loved it, and it really built me as a person. So, and as a shlucha, as I am today, it really, really gave me the tools. Yeah.
You met a lot of good friends.
Oh yeah, till today we're still in touch. So that means a lot, yeah, definitely.
And how did you finished seminary and then you met your husband? How did that happen?
So actually, my husband was also working in outreach. He was very, very active. He's from Israel, but he was working in, doing a lot of programs and also in the yeshiva and also in the community in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area. And he ran a very big event for the Rebbe's birthday. So a friend of my family actually heard about the event and got to know him, and she connected us, through that. So it feels so special that actually that event brought us together, because this is what our life is surrounded, So,
right.
Yeah.
And so you got married, and then, how long after did you move to Manila?
Actually, right after our first wedding anniversary, on our first wedding anniversary, many people are celebrating. We were in the port in New York, sending our stuff to the Philippines. So our life was really surrounding, the shlichut and Chabad ever since we were even going out. So that was a very big point of it. So yeah, just after our first anniversary, actually.
So, and why Manila? Why Philippines? Of all the places in the world.
It really, wherever anybody ends up is really from God. And any Chabad house that's opened is essentially from the Rebbe, right? He sends each person to where they need to be, where their potential can be taken out. And we started hearing about the Philippines from just very different random people, friends, some of my husband's connections in his Chabad work. Some people toured here. And then we started looking into it, and we realized it's really a country with tourists, businessmen, community members, and no Chabad. And as of today, we already have 5 Chabad houses, so that tells you a lot,
Right, of course. And what was the political climate like when you moved there?
Well, when we came here, it was very different than it is today. The Philippines in the 80s, it was very popular. There was lots of tourists, lots of people coming here. There was actually an American army base in the Philippines, so it had a lot of, back and forth. But after a few years, things really picked up. There was like hundreds of tourists every Shabbat, and many businessmen. The community really, really grew. So we saw the change happen. It was beautiful to see it, actually.
And when you moved there, you built your home. Like, how did you go about doing that?
So we actually landed in a very interesting time, because as we landed, like in the Philippines, the day that we landed was the day of the Bombay attack. Mumbai attack, when the Chabad house had the terror attack. So as we landed, we already started, before we moved here, we looked for places, we connected with brokers and different options. And when we got here, so we looked for a place to stay, and we were not successful at finding anything because, all the tenants didn't want to have, they didn't want to have anyone staying in their place when they heard the word Chabad. But we had a lot of miracles, and thankfully we were able to find a perfect place. The Chabad house had 4 openings, just like Abraham's tent. So it felt just right, So really, the Rebbe guided us and really helped us.
So it's been 9 years later.
Well, actually, we're about to celebrate 13 years, but we stayed in our first place for 9 years.
And since then, what have you established today? What do you see around you today at Chabad?
Well, actually, a few years ago, we built this building that we're at now. So we built it from scratch with huge miracles and blessings from the Rebbe. So it's the things that we did in the previous location. It was, we still had lots of people over. We still had classes. We still had kosher services available, for anybody who wants to eat kosher food, even though we're in Asia and this is the end of the world. But as of today, we already are able to really make our programs bigger and more available, because we have this it's a 9-floor building, so we have a lot of space, and each place has its own, each need is fulfilled.
I find that incredible.
Yeah.
That you have a building, you have a whole operation. And how would you describe one day at Chabad? Like, how do you start off your day?
Listen, each day is different. There's some things that we just will not miss. Like, my husband has his Torah classes in the morning, even if it's regular time, even if it's high Torah season or quiet time, he still has his Torah classes, the prayer. This is our synagogue. And for myself, I'm with the kids. We also have other kids that join us to study as well. It's a lot of cooking, a lot of... And in the afternoon, usually I do a lot of admin. We prepare the programs, and we deal with a lot of surprise things that come up, as every Chabad house does. Any kind. somebody needs help, there's a medical emergency, God forbid, or somebody gets lost. I mean, you never know what the day's going to bring. So
you mentioned children.
yeah.
How do you raise your children? Is there a Jewish school there?
So, people ask my kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? So they say, oh, I want to be a shliach, I want to be a rabbi, in a Chabad house. And so they say, oh no, that's only like, running the prayers. They say, no, there's so much involved. So, for the kids there, we're also the teachers, we also run the school. So for myself, I also run, everything around the kids. And so they study with myself, or if I bring in teachers from abroad. And then otherwise in the afternoon, they also have their online classes. They go to Mashiach Kids Online, which is an excellent school, and they're thankfully very, very happy. So yeah, they have that mix of also meeting other kids and also the online classes.
Wow,
yeah, it's homeschooling, and it's everything together.
Right,
yeah.
and in terms of like eating kosher and kosher meat, like how do you maneuver that?
So kosher, I mean, the one positive thing about the kosher situation here in Manila is that, the Philippines was under American rule for a while. So because we're the capital, there are a lot of kosher products that we can find here, but some basics like meat, chicken, bread, dairy, we don't have here. So for the meat, we bring in a shochet, a rabbi from Australia, and he does, usually every visit he does, every few months, he does about 6,000 chickens, he does some beef, lamb, whatever. Actually, when we got here, we were vegetarian for a while because we ran out of our chicken that we brought in our suitcase. So, I always joked, I said, it's not going to be a big deal because anyways we'll have fish, but then I had this jumping fish in my kitchen sink, so I suddenly realized it's going to be an experience either way. So yeah, we have lots of kosher fish. I learned how to make cheese, which is really nice to have, like suddenly mozzarella cheese. Everything we have to make.
The fruits and the vegetables must be incredible.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's such a variety and so healthy. So yeah, thank God that's a big blessing here.
I looked at you talking to your was it your son or your daughter?
I just realized. Yeah, it's funny because they were like, at first I spoke to them in English, but today they speak to me in Hebrew just because their teachers are Israeli. So I mean, they know a little bit of Tagalog, of the local language, but she wants to be part as well, I guess.
You want to be part of it? Can you tell me a little bit about the Jewish community in Manila?
So yeah, it's really a mix of people where they're coming from. There's a lot of Israelis, American, French. It really depends, people come and go. Usually, like I said, there's many backpackers that come, but the people who are actually here, there's a lot of embassy workers as well. So by now, even though it's COVID time, so we have a real connection with the people who are still living here. Like, we can really focus on the personal connections, on the challenges that people are going through. And
tell me,
yeah.
Was it at the beginning of the pandemic?
So it was a big shock. Nobody really knew what was going on. It was also, we're very close to China. So that, I think that one of the first people that died from the virus was in the Philippines. So yeah, it changed a lot. We suddenly didn't have a lot of people coming in and out. We had a few intimate Shabbat with our kids, and we got to really build more connections with the community on a personal level, and they started, opening up also. We started hearing and of course it affected them as well. So we had different, we had also other challenges that were, people suddenly didn't have jobs. We had a few people move in with us eventually that we had, took care of just, food, shelter. People who had very good jobs suddenly really needed that basic help,
You were helping, the underprivileged and those in need. And how did you do that? How did you help them?
Well, we were very thankful that Hashem continued to show us miracles. I mean, running a Chabad house is one big miracle, you know, every day throughout the day. So we were able just to help them with food, with money, even medical help. Some people, you know, suddenly were sick, so we were their family suddenly. You know, I mean, we were always their family, but this was especially a time when you know, we can be part of their life.
Right. And what kind of example, do you have an example of how someone was in distress and needed your help?
During the COVID times,
Yes.
like I said, there were some people that used to be like 2 or 3 star Michelin chef in a very fancy hotel here, and he suddenly didn't have food to eat, and he had to just come by just to stay with us, to have shelter, to get through the time. You know, even for the locals, like the people here really were affected by it, especially because of the lack of tourism, and in general, you know, the country really suffered from it. So it's different here, and there's
Have
also
a Costco.
it's not called Costco, but there are a lot of Kirkland products and kosher products. And at the same time, you know, the people are very warm and real, and they still are, you know, very happy and regular people here. So it's a beautiful country too, you know. So they have that mix.
In retrospect, how did the seminary prepare you for this moment, for taking on the role that you have?
In many ways. I mean, like I said, on a personal level, you know, I personally had a chance to really grow and blossom and open up the real me. The classes that we learned, the education courses, I mean, I'm using it with my kids and with the kids in the community. And we also had chances to take part in other Chabad activities as well, helping other Chabad houses. There was Hanukkah by Rabbi and Mrs. Raskin. That was really an experience, coming from Miami to suddenly experience, you know, the winter in Montreal and the ice on the leaves. That was quite an experience. So that was really very special. It's really, I took a lot from seminary. So.
And if you had to give one good piece of advice to other girls who will adventure into the world and spearhead Chabad, what kind of advice would you give them?
I think it's just being open to know that Hashem and the Rebbe is guiding you, and just to know that everything works in the way that it's supposed to. So then you just relax into it, and you find so many opportunities to, you know, it will change your life, and you're able to, you know, be bringing the world to Mashiach, which the whole world needs something that's positive today and something that's, you know, life-changing and good. So just do it and trust and be open to, you know, to the good that's going to come with it.
Well, that's very inspiring, and I'm in awe and admiration in all that you do. And I'd love to know, what can we do to help you as a community here in Montreal? What can we do to support your initiatives?
I think just for each person to also take upon themselves something that they're going to do to affect other people, you know, to help the seminary, to help people, you know, girls go out in the world and become leaders and affect their communities. You know, you can follow us on our Chabad YouTube. You can see what's happening and get to really experience the life here also from our lens. So that's an interesting experience. But I think just adding in good things, so we're all working in the same direction, and that's so powerful. So I think that's the most important.
That's wonderful. Look, I'm really in admiration, and I think you're doing a fantastic job. And really, I think that the seminary definitely prepares you for the life ahead. And
Absolutely.
And you're igniting light where there is no light, and I think that's very commendable. And you know, I wish you health and happiness and good things, and may you continue to be a source of guidance to Manila and to the entire world.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.